What's up guys, Corbunlock here, bringing you guys another Destiny 2 video. As you know, Witch Queen is less than a month away at this point, so today, in this video, we're going to be discussing my hopes and fears for Witch Queen as a whole, as an expansion. More specifically, probably the first season, because that's what we know most about in terms of what's been revealed, is basically going to be the first season of entering Savathun's throne world and such. So, pretty much 80%, if not more, of what I'm discussing right now is just going to be pertaining to the first season. In summary, we've got 6 subcategories of the expansion that I'm going to be discussing. Those are going to be patrol area or areas, if there's more than one, the story in general, Hive Guardians as a portion of the gameplay in that story, the upcoming raid, Void 3.0, and weapon crafting. Alright guys, first up on the list, we're going to go through my hopes and fears for patrol areas in the Witch Queen. At this point, I'm not sure whether it's going to be Savathun's throne world, or if like a dark version of Mars is even a possibility. But it seems like Savathun's throne world is really going to be the main place where we get to patrol and explore, do all that fun stuff. Going into this, I basically have 3 questions before I get to my hopes and fears. Will there be like traditional patrols? Will there be public events? Will we get patrol bounties from someone, like most patrol areas? And in my mind, that person would be Ikora, perhaps. And even still, I feel like Ikora might be in the tower. We get those from her. I'm not really sure how we get to Savathun's throne world aside from Dark Mars. And if that is somehow part of the patrol area, that'd be a little weird, if I'm honest. So in my mind, it's going to work out that Dark Mars is just part of a story mission to get you to the throne world for the first time, and then that's going to be patrolling. For this one, I'm going to start with my fears, actually. My fears for this are that Bungie's are going to remove some of the traditional pieces of patrol areas, like patrols and public events. That's going to lead to maybe barrenness. I fear that may be an issue, because in my head I can't wrap around patrols and public events in a place where humanity is not prominent, or like we're not trying to set up camp there for really any reason. It's not even really a physical place. So why would there be public events? Why would there be... I can't even really think of an example. Like on Europa, you have fallen parties trying to get a hold of the darkness. So basically my only thought here is that maybe the Scorn are going to create public events, trying to see if there's any darkness in the throne world, or maybe try to steal the light themselves. That's the only thing I can think of that would create public events. Unless the Taken also start doing the same thing, and trying to invade, where we have Taken Blights. That's already a public event. But my fear is that there just won't be any. This will be mostly exploration, leading to barrenness. So my hopes for this is that it's fun to explore, whether that's Dark Mars and the Throne World, or just one. It's got to be the Throne World at this point, is what I'm thinking, but I'm leaving Dark Mars as like a 10% chance that we would be able to explore it as a patrol now. I hope there are puzzles, a lot of puzzles, using, I guess, that sort of psychic paracausal power that creates jumping platforms. I hope there's a lot of cool puzzles like that, that lead to special loot, or even just lore, that's like optional to get, but maybe goes deeper into Savathun's life that we haven't seen. I know we have the Books of Sorrow and such, but there's always room for more lore. I hope that it's expansive in so far as like, it always seems like you're finding something new, or that I don't get bored of exploring it rather quickly. Because on Europa, everything looks the same on the surface, and then going into buildings is really where you get some of that diversity of scenery. So exploring the surface of Europa got boring to me rather quickly, and so just already seeing the different biomes and different areas that Bungie's shown off, that's already kind of confirming my hope. I hope that there are lost sectors tied to these puzzles also. Of course, with a patrol area, traditionally we do get lost sectors, but again, I'm not really sure how that will work in a throne world. And then my last hope for this is that it ties seamlessly into story missions. And the only thing I can really tie this to right now in practicality is how Halo Infinite ties open world areas into story missions and into cutscenes, and it's pretty much seamless every time they do it. It doesn't like fade to black. There's no loading times really when you're in the world. And I would love to see something like that where we can just be patrolling and then all of a sudden we're in a story mission, or all of a sudden we're in a cutscene. Almost like how Vault of Glass first appeared. You could just be in the patrol area and start Vault of Glass and stuff like that. So that is my hope and fears for patrol areas in the Witch Queen. Next up, we're going to talk about the story. As I said, I hope the patrol area ties into the story rather seamlessly. It's fine if we do have to just select missions on the map, but it would be very nice if we could just be exploring and go there and start story missions. So for this opening season of the Witch Queen, my hopes are that the story in this season leads us to Osiris, and overall, I hope that killing Savathun won't be an easy thing, or just take this one season. Maybe during this season, we are figuring out how to kill Savathun, maybe killing some of her Hive Guardians or her lackeys. It's hard to say in a throne world, like, what exactly we'll be doing, but I hope it's not just killing Savathun this first season, considering the whole year is themed around her. So I hope this is really just more of an exploration, and like they've shown off, kind of like detective work. That's what I really want this season to be about. I hope that the story overall is difficult. I know that they've confirmed that there are difficulty options, and that there are scaling for when you have a different amount of people in your fire team. So it's going to get harder to match your fire team. One person, it's going to be a little easier. I say a little easier. It's supposed to be just as difficult for you alone as it is for you and your buddies doing it together. And I hope that feels natural. And again, I want some puzzles to be involved with the story. Specifically in this case, I think an ARG perhaps would be really cool. I know a lot of you are probably familiar with what an ARG is. For those of you that aren't, an ARG is an alternate reality game, and I'm just going to tear this definition straight from Wikipedia because I could not form better words myself. It's an interactive, networked narrative that uses the real world as a platform and employs different forms of media storytelling to deliver a story that can be altered by the player's ideas or actions. So I know they've done this with a few expansions, like giving players like physical material things that gave clues about the story, that were actual puzzles to do, and I think that'd be really cool if they did something like that again. With Savathun's trickery, it'd be really cool if something Bungie did in the real world and players interacted with altered future story. I don't know exactly how this would look, but with Savathun's trickery, I could see her even tricking us, the human player, beyond just our character in the story. I think that would be really cool if they could pull something like that off. By no means is that a make or break point for me. I just think that'd be really cool. It's a recent obsession of mine. But my fears is that it'd be rather simple tasks that we're doing in the story, aside from just fighting enemies. Our goal might just be to hold a position, or have Ghost scan something, which we've done timeless times. It's in like every strike and every mission, Ghost has to scan something to open a door or something. And I just don't want things to feel repetitive in the story. Now there are things where it's gonna have to be repetitive, especially like seasonal activities. They're usually repetitive because you're doing the same thing repeatedly on purpose to grind out weapons and stuff. That's not necessarily the repetition I'm concerned about. It's mostly with the story. I don't want it to be self-contained like Beyond Light felt to me. The opening season of Beyond Light, you get the darkness and you're on Europa a lot, and then after the first season, I don't think I ever went back to Europa. It seemed like after Aramis was frozen, nothing Aramis did really even mattered. And so I'm hoping that this first season of Witch Queen doesn't end up like that, and I'm hoping Witch Queen as a whole has long-lasting effects for the rest of the expansions of Destiny 2, leading into the final shape and beyond, which it seems like that's what they're working towards. Maybe I just can't see how Aramis' story is going to tie into future events, aside from like just the darkness in general. But my hope is like I can actively see this story's effects and this season's effects moving forward as we learn more about the darkness and about Savathun and Throne Worlds, and just our paracausality as well. And I don't want the difficulty and its scaling to feel like a Grandmaster. I want it to be difficult, but I don't want to be one-tapped by a thrall, if that makes sense. I want it to feel like coordinated, clever attacks by Savathun that we're having to work towards because we're in her realm, and not that just she's throwing a million thrall at me that can all one-tap me. Being all this Destiny 2 goodness, I stream Destiny 2 on Twitch several times a week, usually on the weekends and Tuesdays, just to check out what's new. But I also stream some other games, usually around 7 p.m. EST. So you should check out that link in the description for my Twitch channel. Give me a follow if you enjoy Destiny content or Nintendo content, because I do a lot of that. It'd mean a lot to me if you check that out, but I don't want to take up too much of your time, so let's get back to the video. Next up on the list, we do have one of the major portions of the story and the gameplay loop, that being Hive Guardians. This one's rather simple. My hopes are that there's a variety of subclasses, much like in Guardians, that it won't just be, you know, Arc, Hive Wizard, Void, Hive Knight, and Solar Acolyte. It'd be cool if they did something like a Tether Acolyte and detained us and stuff like that. I hope there's smart AI, that they'll do coordinated attacks. Guardians tend to do against bosses. I hope there's like some synergy there, and I do hope that they are difficult to kill. I don't really know how to gauge this, if each one should feel like a boss of a strike or maybe a champion. I don't really know where that fits in, and I'd like to see their respawn timer be similar to ours, you know, just like 3 seconds to get it and defeat their ghost. I'm liking what I see with Hive Guardians, not really sure how it's going to play out in a gameplay loop. So yeah, basically my fears are the converse of that. It's just going to be the same 3 types of Hive Guardians that we've seen already, just repeated a bunch, and it's just going to feel like a Hive Knight or an Acolyte that I have to shoot more times, because I feel like for the most part you could just stand back and shoot with powerful weapons to kill them. I don't want it to be too predictable or stale, especially for fighting a lot of these. Moving on from there, I'm going to talk about the upcoming raid in the Witch Queen. All that we know about this, or as far as I know, is that it's just going to take place in the pyramid in Savathun's Throne World. My hopes for this is that the final boss is not Savathun, and that this raid is not Hive related at all. Because part of me thinks that King's Fall might be the raid that they revamp and from Destiny 1 and bring in this year. And if that's the case, I definitely don't want 2 Hive raids happening at the same time. But even if they don't, I don't want the Witch Queen trying to exist entirely off of the nostalgia around King's Fall. I know that Oryx is great, and his story was awesome, and his raid was good, but I want the Witch Queen as a whole to feel different from that. Yes, we are going to fight Savathun. It's going to be one of the big 3 Hive gods, if you will. But that doesn't necessarily need to be a raid in a pyramid. So the rest of my hopes are that the Scorn are involved somehow, because it is a pyramid and they're the most darkness related enemy that we have, aside from the Hive. But I think in the end, I want the final boss to not be Scorn or Hive, but maybe something they've both been seeking. If that is like the true form of Savathun's Hive Worm, or something darkness related that we, the player, aren't even prepared for. Just something truly dark and sinister in there. That would be ultimately the coolest ending for me personally. Another thing I want is deeply challenging puzzles. There is a theme here with my desire for puzzles. This is Savathun, the god of trickery, and I want to be tricked several times throughout the story and maybe even the raid. Maybe Savathun's tampering with the raid from the outside just because this is her thoughts, trying to trip us up or even get us killed. And my hope ultimately is that it would rival the Last Wish in terms of just the community coming together and trying to solve these puzzles over the opening day, even if it does take a long time again. But it would also make sense to me if something like that scale of just puzzle solving and difficulty was saved for Lightfall or the final shape. I'm not quite sure how it fits in, but I think it'd be nice if we did it right now. The last couple of raids, including Vault of Glass, Deepstone Crypt are the 2 I'm specifically thinking about. They weren't necessarily too difficult in terms of puzzle solving. So yeah, I think for me the difficulty there was just killing the bosses of each encounter and learning how to do that well. That was the difficult part for me. But figuring out the Last Wish for the first time, that was something to be remembered. So those are ultimately my hopes for the raid. And I already said it, my fear is that this is a Hive raid that tries to exist off purely nostalgia for King's Fall, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's not. That's just not something I want. Because if we do get King's Fall this year, it's just going to be really off to me if we have 2 Hive raids. So next up on the list, we've got Void 3.0. We've seen a fair bit of footage about Void 3.0, but not necessarily the UI and how all of that interacts. For me, my hopes are that each class keeps unique aspects of Void, such as their grenades. Like I know Warlocks have the big Vortex grenades, and Titans have the Wall of Fire, and then Hunters, of course, can turn you invisible on Void. So that's something I want to keep separated in the classes, as well as melee abilities, which don't really vary too much, aside from their buffs and debuffs. I would like super choices to remain in some capacity, like I want a Nova Bomb, but I kind of also want Nova Warp, but with the ability to like mix and match different portions of each subclass. I don't think you need 2 Nova Bombs, perhaps, maybe just aspects and stuff like that. Something I would like is the ability to access buffs and debuffs from all the classes. I'm thinking such as like a Titan that can access Devour, or a Warlock that can access Suppress, or even just a Warlock using Slova, but also Devour, to mix the power of Slova with the healing aspect of Devour. And of course, something I really love is just synergy as a whole. I love build crafting, so if we can synergize with existing exotics and weapons, I would like it all the more. My fear for this one is pretty practical. Void 3.0 will be too OP at launch like Stasis was, which is almost bound to happen, I think, and I don't want it to be nerfed into the ground either after that point. I do really respect Bungie for separating PvE and PvP, so I do hope that continues, which it almost certainly will. But again, I feel like there are opportunities when you have so much freedom that something's going to be so overpowered at launch that it's going to get nerfed into the ground, and someone's favorite build is no longer useful. Let's just keep it balanced as best we can, and Void 3.0 will be great, I'm sure. Last up on the list, I'm going to talk about weapon crafting, something we know surprisingly little about, but today is Thursday the 27th. I feel like the TWAB about it, or the TWAB today, is going to be about it. The TWAB drops, and everything I've said is on the list somehow. Just know I didn't know this in advance. My hopes for this are pretty much a process. So start with a weapon of your choice with random rolls. Complete tasks to earn a material or whatever. Just completing tasks allows you to permanently unlock a perk of your choice in a column of your choice. So hey, you just want Rampage. Every roll of this gun that you create from then on, you can choose to have Rampage on it, or if for some reason you no longer want Rampage on your gun, you can do a random one. Rinse and repeat until you have every perk unlocked, and you can literally choose all 4 perks and create a weapon. For Adept or Time Lost weapons, I would like to even go to the point where you could choose 2 perks in every column. If you've spent enough time on it, if you love this weapon enough, I feel like you deserve it to pick all 8 perks, creating like a dual god roll of your choice, having your 4 favorite PvP perks and 4 favorite PvE perks. And I could even see them doing this for a new exotic, or maybe going back to Deadman's Tale or Hawkmoon, allowing you to craft your personal favorite exotic. Or I don't see this happening, but it'd be cool, allowing you to do some sort of customization to old exotics. For old exotics, of course, I think you need that 1 perk that defines them. That stays, but maybe being able to choose a barrel and a mag perk. That would be cool if somehow they could implement some sort of customization on old exotics. But again, not entirely necessary, because then you open up the opportunity, if you take it too far, for broken and maybe too many possibilities for gameplay and taking up too much space within the game's files. Not every weapon needs random rolls. By no means does that part have to happen. Just spitballing here. But my fear for this is kind of like how Transmog started, is that it's going to cost a lot. It's going to take a lot of time for materials that don't really need to be necessary for the process. Then they're going to cap it on how far or how many weapons you can craft and perfect in a season. Is there an upside to capping it? Maybe, just to keep players coming back. If you love a weapon enough, I think you deserve to fully do whatever you want with that weapon and then move on. Let players move on from one weapon to the next, or do a couple at a time. I think if you do the system right, there's no need to cap it. Ultimately, that's up to Bungie. I may not even be right with how this process is going to work. But with that, those are the 6 categories I wanted to tackle concerning Witch Queen, and all my hopes and fears for everything I could think of off the top of my head. So let me know in the comments down below what your hopes and fears are. If you agree with some of mine, if you don't, let me know. There's room for discussion here. And of course, I didn't think of everything, so if there's a topic that I completely missed, of course, let me know down below, and we can discuss it in the comments. And as always, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys